other people. So obviously I'm running all the sports journalism, like predominantly football, but I don't really think, apart from saying I've got an interest in football, I haven't really got like, would I just go out there and start writing match reports myself or something, or how would I put myself ahead of other people without?
That's what I did. I just went to there are a lot of, I mean, we've only got a certain amount of staff that can, and as I said earlier, just as I have to focus on the showpiece pages in the titles, so we, because of our lack of volume of staff, if you like, can only cover a certain amount of games. There are actually a lot of what I call grassroots games in both football and rugby where we actually have to freelance them out to freelancers. Well, that becomes quite competitive now as well, because there are so many of them out there that there's too many freelancers for the games, if you like. My own personal experience of these things is that perseverance is the best thing that can happen. I think I said already, haven't I, that we get absolutely inundated with work experience people ourselves, and it just becomes impossible to accommodate them all. But I would just keep trying, because you will get your break. If you really want to do it, at some point your break will come. And it is worth maybe perhaps cherry picking a particular game at grassroots level and saying, look, would you mind if I try doing this for you? And just see where that leads. That's what happened with me, and eventually it's the same thing. It's almost who you know as much as anything else, but once you get your foot in that door, there's far more likelihood of you going on the upward ladder there than there is trying in from the outside. It is hugely competitive. There are an awful lot of people who want to do it, but you know, you seem keen on the whole thing. So my advice there would just be to persevere for the time being. And you can always try our place. You have to show that you, because it's so hugely popular to get into this profession, it's so hugely competitive, you just have to show that you're prepared to put your foot in the door, you're prepared to go that extra mile, if you like, just to get that experience. And I can't emphasise enough how much that holds you in good stead when it comes to potential for jobs or something like that.
You said that sport drives in the newspaper and the website. Have you writers go specifically for the website for sport?
We don't. We do it ourselves. Everything, the writers that we have are, there is actually an online team, but they tend to deal with what I call the semantics of the online, like putting the stories up for us rather than writing the stories. The writers that we have five people who sit on what I would term a rugby desk, but two of them would split into other sports as well. We have five people who sit into what I would term a football desk, but again, one or two of them cover other sports as well. And then we have three senior members of the management who also get heavily involved in the writing. But the people, you tend to write for the titles and also for the website as well. So for example, I'll just give a quick one. If Cardiff City were about to sign David Beckham and we got to hear about it, we would quickly bang out 6 paragraphs to go on the website. But it would be the same people doing it that actually write for the titles as well.
You know, like sports journalism, it's always male dominated and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you have much women working for the sports department or report on much women's sports? Because I haven't really noticed much women's sports in there.
It's a very good point actually. I mean, we have a 23-person sports department with one female working on it. She is absolutely worth her weight in gold. It would be wrong for me to say that the sports desk couldn't operate without her, but when she's not there, we don't often miss her. She's a fantastic journalist. It's one of these things where you have to tick certain boxes to be politically correct at times, but we try to do it when we can. But we also have to be mindful of the fact that you can only get a certain amount of your product in X number of pages. And it's an area, let's say, that is work in progress rather than something that we have definitive. I could stand and argue, rightly or wrongly, that we have this right, that right, this right, that right, and so on. Women in sport is more of a grey area because there's not the mass appeal in terms of fans going to the game or having the thirst to read about it, if you like, that there is with the Welsh rugby team, for argument's sake. But it's there, it's an important part of society. Women's football is the fastest growing sport in the world, and we've endeavoured to push that as much as possible within the parameters that we can, if you like. But you make a very good point, and it's something I'll go away and think about.
I just noticed because like a paper that's kind of like the Western Mail
Yeah.
in Ireland,
Yeah.
it's a lot of woman-based football. It's far bigger than it is over here, I think.
Yeah.
And then maybe the readership's different. Maybe your target audience is different.
Is it in terms of do they have the fans going to watch their games as
Yeah.
well, or yeah? It's interesting because there's an example of maybe where the two could dovetail together, because the more publicity it gets, the more likelihood there will be of people going there. I think perhaps with a lot of these things, I mean, we can only cover so many things with the staff that we have. With a lot of these things, and women's sport is a perfect example of that. Perhaps the governing bodies need to be a little bit more proactive in terms of getting their coverage across titles. And this doesn't matter whether it's football, whether it's rugby, whether it's lacrosse, whatever. I think things like that, you actually are reliant on governing bodies. And now that can either be the Sports Council for Wales in this context, or it can be the Football Association of Wales or the Welsh Rugby Union. You're reliant upon those supplying you with the information. And I repeat, we do endeavour to do it. Certainly, you know, when Nicole Cook is winning gold medals, it's all over the back page of the Western Mail. There are other examples of that as well. But clearly, it's not going to have the day-to-day mass volume of coverage that, say, Welsh football or Welsh rugby gets, because those are seen as our core sales sort of areas, if you like. So that's where the priority goes, and rightly so. But we do try to endeavour to cover as wider range of things as possible. But you make a good point, and I'm going to go away and think about that as well.